World Teachers' Day is celebrated every 5th October as a global tribute to the dedicated educators who shape the future of our society. It's Global News and Zoom on Nigeria. Many thanks for joining me. The headline says UK alerts on Russian Black Sea mines. US medical workers strike at Kaiser Permanente. Republicans seek to unite after McCarthy's ouster. European leaders will convene in Spain's Granada, and Australia rejoining climate fund abandoned in 2018. The United Kingdom has said, citing intelligence sources, that Russia may use sea mines against civilian shipping in the Black Sea, including by laying them on their approach to Ukrainian ports. The alert comes as Ukraine's Navy said 12 cargo vessels were prepared to enter a fledgling Black Sea shipping corridor on their way to Ukrainian ports, a major addition in maritime traffic to Ukraine in defiance of a de facto Russian blockade of the country's seaports. In a statement on Wednesday, the UK's Foreign Office said intelligence assessments showed that Russia was considering the use of sea mines to prevent civilian ships traveling through a humanitarian corridor created by Ukraine to facilitate grain exports from the Black Sea ports. Russia almost certainly wants to avoid openly sinking civilian ships, instead falsely laying blame on Ukraine for any attacks against civilian vessels in the Black Sea, the Foreign Office said in a statement. By releasing our assessment of this intelligence, the UK seeks to expose Russia's tactics to deter any such incident from occurring. It added. James Cleverly, the UK's Foreign Secretary, was quoted as saying that the world is watching what unfolds in the Black Sea and Russia's cynical attempt to lay blame on Ukraine for the attacks. Russia pulled out of a deal in July that had permitted Ukraine to securely ship food products out through the Black Sea, which is traditionally its main export corridor. Moscow shortly after announced that ships in the vicinity of Ukraine's Black Sea ports will be considered potential supporters of Kyiv's war efforts and parties to the Ukrainian conflict. Russia has also added up aerial attacks on Ukraine's ports with drones and missile raids that have so far damaged 130 infrastructure facilities and destroyed closely 300,000 tons of grain, enough to feed more than 1 million people for a year, the United Kingdom said. Ukraine responded by setting up a temporary humanitarian corridor on the Black Sea for cargo vessels willing to risk traveling to its ports, and several ships have since used the routes. On Wednesday, Ukrainian Navy spokesperson Dmytro Plenchuk said that more than 20 ships were preparing to exit and enter Ukraine's seaports. With a lot happening in the United States on health matters, numerous medical workers in the United States have walked off the job in one of the biggest strikes in the country's healthcare sector. On Wednesday, the walkout of over 75,000 workers at Kaiser Permanente, the largest not-profit healthcare organization in the U.S., comes as rising inflation has spurred industrial action across the country. Most of the Oakland-based company's facilities are in California, where scores of workers picketed outside the hospitals. Kaiser has not been bargaining with us in good faith, and so it's pushing us to come out here and strike. Jacqueline Dooley, a radiologic technologist among the hundreds of picketers at Kaiser Permanente, Orange County, Irving Medical Center, said, according to reports. We want to be inside just taking care of our patients. Others said they were underpaid and overworked. Ever since the pandemic hit, we lost a lot of members and we never recovered them, X-ray technician Armando Velasco said, according to report. Kaiser said its 39 hospitals, including emergency rooms, will remain open, but warned the massive strike will cause delays. Doctors are not participating, and Kaiser said it was bringing in thousands of temporary workers to fill the gaps. Still, appointments and non-urgent procedures could be pushed back. The coalition of Kaiser Permanente unions said it was awaiting a meaningful response from Kaiser executives regarding some of our priorities, including demands for pay raises and increased staffing. A coalition statement on Wednesday night said currently the strike continues and there are no sessions scheduled at this hour. Kaiser said in a statement late on Wednesday that while no contract deal was reached, there were tentative agreements on a number of unspecified issues. The company said it will reconvene bargaining as soon as possible. The strike comes in a year when there have been work stoppages within numerous industries, including transportation, entertainment, and hospitality. At least 453,000 workers have participated in 312 strikes in the U.S. this year, according to Johnny Carlos, a PhD candidate and the project director of Cornell University's Labor Action Tracker. That figure includes CASA workers. He said, according to reports, the strike will likely hurt CASA's reputation and its narrative of patient care more than its bottom line. The healthcare industry alone has been hit by several strikes this year as it confronts burnouts from heavy workloads, problems that were exacerbated greatly by the COVID-19 pandemic. Still staying with the US and politics, the stunning removal of Kevin McCarthy as United States House of Representatives Speaker on Tuesday has left the chamber drifting as Republicans battle to bring order to their fractured majority and start the difficult and potentially prolonged process of uniting around a new leader. On Wednesday, the House convened briefly and then went into recess with North Carolina's Republican Patrick McHenry, the caretaker speaker, serving in the job with very little power for the foreseeable future. Other Republicans left Washington awaiting the next steps. The House will try to elect a speaker as soon as next week. The timing is nowhere near certain as Republicans line up for their chance at the gavel amid the bitter divisions that sparked the chaos. The House Majority Leader, Republican Steve Scalise, is in line for the post, but he faced an immediate challenge from Republican Jim Jordan, the Judiciary Committee chairman and a favorite of conservatives, who quickly announced his own candidacy. Others are expected to emerge. Many doubt that anyone can get the 218 votes needed to become Speaker. Voting for McCarthy in January took 15 excruciating rounds, even though he was the consensus choice of the Republican conference. At the White House, President Joe Biden, a Democrat, said the American people still expected the government to get its work done in a timely fashion. Electing a new speaker risks inflaming the divisions that have plagued House Republicans all year, particularly if lawmakers make new demands before pledging support. Scalise has long been viewed as a potential speaker in waiting and is revered as a survivor after he was shot in the hip at a congregational baseball team practice in 2017. But Scalise is also being treated for a form of blood cancer, forcing him away from the Capitol at times. Away from United States matters, now about 50 European leaders have arrived in Granada, Spain for a summit of European political community, a forum pointing to foster cooperation across the continent. Meetings on the margins will focus on crises between Azerbaijan and Armenia and between Serbia and Kosovo, which have flared in recent weeks. Armenia's Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan is attending, but Azerbaijan President Ilham Aliyev is not anticipated to take part. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and Italian counterpart Giorgia Meloni are sharing a side meeting at the forum where they will push a plan for tough action on migration. Recently escalating tensions between some European countries, including Kosovo and Serbia, EPC participants will put a particular spotlight on which leaders meet behind closed doors in Granada. Hopes are high that political leaders of Serbia and Kosovo will agree to talks. In late September, North Kosovo, which borders Serbia, witnessed the worst outburst of violence in the last 15 years when armed perpetrators attacked Kosovo police, killing one officer. European leaders are expected to assure Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky of long-term support after US President Joe Biden voiced first that Republican infighting in Congress could hurt American policy and continuing aid to Kyiv. President Zelensky's attendance was not announced in advance for security reasons. Officials familiar with the plan said he would take part in the summit, giving him the chance to press for more urgently needed military aid, such as air defense systems. The gathering also gives leaders such as French President Emmanuel Macron, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, and UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak a chance to restate their commitment to Ukraine after political turbulence in both the US and Europe raised concerns about continued support. Now to Australia on climate crisis. Australia has announced it will rejoin the United Nations Climate Fund set up to help poorer countries deal with challenges of a heating planet ahead of a major donor conference. The world's biggest, the Green Climate Fund (GCF), was set up as part of the landmark 2015 Paris Agreement on Climate Change and has so far approved projects with nearly $13 billion in 128 countries. Australia withdrew from the initiative under a previous right-wing government in 2018, having contributed about 200 million Australian dollars, that's $127.4 million during its 4-year membership. A spokesperson for Foreign Ministry Penny Wong said Australia recognized that GCF was the most prominent of the world's climate funds and a lifeline for island nations in the Pacific. We have taken on board feedback from our partners in the Pacific on the best ways to direct our climate finance efforts and ensure all elements deliver for Pacific priorities, the spokesperson said. The Pacific Islands are among the most vulnerable to climate change because of rising sea levels and the more frequent and intense storms that have accompanied higher global temperatures. A modest contribution will be made to fund by the end of the year, Wong's spokesperson added, without specifying a figure. The Australian reversal comes ahead of a GCF donor conference in the German city of Bonn later on Thursday, but also reflects the strategic importance of the Pacific to Australia as Beijing seeks to expand its influence in the region. Financing is one of the most contentious topics in international climate diplomacy as the world aims to limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. Developing countries least responsible for climate change are seeking support for the richer polluting nations, both to adapt to the consequences of extreme weather and to transition to renewable energies. GCF Executive Director Mafalda Duarte called on the fund's supporters to fully honor its initial vision and unique potential. On more stories, 100 missing, 14 dead in India flood rescue begins. A search and rescue operation has been launched for over 100 missing people in India's northeast after flash floods ripped through the Himalayan state of Sikkim on Wednesday, killing at least 14 people and washing away roads and bridges, according to the state government. Known as the rooftop of the world, the ecologically sensitive Himalayan region is prone to flash floods and landslides, and flooding is not unusual in Sikkim. But scientists are clear that severe weather is becoming more common and more intense as the human-caused climate crisis accelerates. A sudden cloudburst over Lonak Lake in the northern part of the state sent fast-moving torrents of water surging down to the Tista River in Sikkim's Lachen Valley, raising water levels 15 to 20 feet higher than normal, the Indian Army said in a statement. A cloudburst is a very sudden and destructive rainstorm. Footage from the north of the state shows the muddy deluge rapidly overflowing the river and flooded houses caked in dirt and debris, while images show search teams using excavators to uncover army vehicles buried deep in the mud. The Indian Space Organization research released dramatic images showing the volume of water which has been released from Lonak Lake following the cloudburst as search efforts continued on Wednesday. Lonak Lake is a large glacial bullet-shaped water body that sits at the foot of a melting glacier. Scientists have long studied Lonak Lake, identifying it as one of the fastest swelling glacial lakes in the region with a high risk of a potential glacial outburst, according to multiple studies. The state government held a consultation workshop on such a risk last May with the director of Sikkim's Department of Science and Technology, highlighting the urgent need for an early warning system for these glacial lakes in Sikkim. Talking Russia-Ukraine war, U.S. sends 1.1 million seized Iran ammunition to Kyiv. The U.S. has sent approximately 1.1 million bullets seized from Iran last year to Ukraine, its military has said. The U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, which oversees operations in the Middle East, says the rounds were seized from a ship bound for Yemen in December. Ukraine's Western allies recently cautioned that their production lines were grappling to keep up with the rates at which Ukraine was using ammunition. CENTCOM says the Iranian rounds were transferred to Ukraine on Monday. It added that the ammunition was 7.62 millimeters caliber used in Soviet-era rifles and light machine guns. While the number is important, it represents a small percentage of the hundreds of millions of rounds already provided by allies to Ukraine. The US has already provided over 200 million bullets and grenades. The Iranian munitions were originally seized by US naval forces from a stateless ship named MARWAN on 9th December, it said. The US government gained ownership of them in July through a process known as civil forfeiture, but which an asset can be seized if its owner is thought to be involved in criminal activity. In this case, the claim was brought against Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, a branch of the Iranian armed forces tasked with preserving the country's government. In a statement, CENTCOM said the US was committed to working with our allies and partners to counter the flow of Iranian lethal aid in the region by all lawful means. Iran backs the Houthi rebels in Yemen's ongoing civil war, but arms transfers to the group are barred under a 2015 resolution by the United Security Council. The civil war in Yemen began in 2014 when the Houthis took control of the capital Sana'a and removed the country's government. The ousted government remains the internationally recognized authority in Yemen and is backed by a Saudi-led coalition of countries in the region, as well as the US and the United Kingdom. Since the second half of the last year, Iran has also repeatedly been accused of supplying Russia with arms, most notably drones for use in the war in Ukraine. In African scenes, Niger halts gas exports to Nigeria. On Tuesday, the government of Niger announced that all exports of liquefied petroleum gas, LPG, also known as cooking gas, have been stopped until further notice. Niamey said domestic production should be used to meet domestic demand, according to report. If there is surplus, export authorization can be requested. Niger transfers its excess natural gas to its neighbor Nigeria prior to this development. According to reports, both countries in 2020 signed a memorandum of understanding for petroleum products importation. The agreement was officially signed in the presence of the respective ministers of state for petroleum, Timi Pre-Silva representing Nigeria and Fomakoye Gado representing Niger Republic. LPG is used for cooking, heating and vehicles has seen a drastic price surge in Nigeria, reaching an unprecedented high of 1,000 naira per kilogram from the previous 750 naira. The Nigeria Association of Liquefied Petroleum Gas Marketers had cautioned of a possible price surge due to fluctuations in foreign exchange rates and international market activities. In part 2, after the break, I'll bring you more stories, but in a moment, do stay with us. You're welcome back. Now it's Zoom on Nigeria, and we begin with Senate confirms Balarabe, 2 others as ministers. The Senate has confirmed the Kaduna State ministerial nominee, Abbas Balarabe, who slumped during his screening earlier yesterday. Similarly, the Senate also confirmed Dr. Jamila Ibrahim and Ayodele Olawande, who were nominated as Minister of Youth and Minister of State for Youth, respectively. Remember, there was intense fear in the Senate on Wednesday when Balarabe, who replaced Nasser El-Rufai, slumped during his screening. He had just finished sharing his experiences when the incident occurred. He was the second nominee to undergo screening after Ibrahim. After reading his profile, Balarabe received an endorsement from the Kaduna lawmaker who showed that 3 senators from the state validated his nomination. But Balarabe slumped on the podium while the Kaduna South Senator Sunday Katun was given an appraisal of Balarabe's administrative background. He was immediately rushed to the National Assembly clinic. After a 45-minute break, the Senate then resumed to confirm the 3 nominees. The Senate had read the names of the nominees, which was sent by President Bola Tinubu on Tuesday. And finally on the news, Chicago Varsity clears Tinubu Atiku to file documents. On Wednesday, the presidency insisted that the academic records released by Chicago State University, United States, had justified President Bola Tinubu and confirmed him as an alumnus of the school. Temitope Ajayi, the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Public Affairs, also submitted that the CSU never said the certificate presented to the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) before the presidential election by Tinubu was fake in its disposition. Former Vice President Abubakar Atiku will on today file his application at the Supreme Court, having obtained Tinubu's academic records on the order of an Illinois Chicago court. Atiku, who contested against Tinubu in the February presidential election on the platform of the People's Democratic Party (PDP), is anticipated to file the documents he obtained from the CSU in furtherance of his election appeal at the Supreme Court. According to reports, the university released the academic records of the president on Monday, and the CSU registrar Carl Westerberg also carried out a disposition of the documents on Tuesday in compliance with the ruling of Magistrate Jeffrey Gilbert. On September 19th, Gilbert had granted Atiku's request for the release of Tinubu's academic records, but the president filed a review of the order. Tinubu's lawyers insisted that the documents will not be significant in Atiku's appeal against Tinubu at the Supreme Court and asked for a review of the ruling. Federal Judge Nancy Maldonado, however, overruled Tinubu's objections and ordered the CSU to release the president's academic records. In the CSU documents, the institution responded to Atiku's full request and affirmed that Tinubu attended the CSU. But taken into account on the X microblogging platform on Wednesday, the presidential media aide dismissed reports that the CSU disowned Tinubu in its disposition. Speaking on the issue for the first time, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Yusuf Tugar, downplayed the controversies surrounding the educational qualification of the president. He said the federal government was not wasting time on Atiku's case in the U.S., describing it as frivolous. He noted that the Tinubu administration did not have time to waste on the certificate issue, which he described as a trivial matter and a distraction. A recap of major stories says UK alerts on Russian Black Sea mines. US medical workers strike at Casa Permanente. Republicans seek to unite after McCarthy's ouster. European leaders will convene in Spain's Granada, and Australia rejoining Climate Fund abandoned in 2018. Once again, happy World Teachers' Day to all the great educators out there. I am Lois Reki. Have a great day.